Vartamanani. Vartamanani, present. Cha, and. Arjuna, O Arjuna. Bhavishyani, future. Cha, also. Bhutani, all living entities. Mam, may. Tu, but. Veda, knows. No, not. Kaschana, anyone. Translation. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. But here, the question of personality and impersonality is clearly stated. If Krishna, the form of Supreme Personality of Godhead for Maya, material, as the impersonalists consider him to be, then like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in the past, present, and future. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. I'll read this again. It's a very significant, very simple Prabhupada's explanation, and it answers many of the questions and many of the issues that all jivas are struggling with in this material condition. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in the past, present, and future. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna clearly says that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and what will happen in the future. In the 4th chapter, we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Vivaswan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as the supersoul. But despite his presence in every living entity as supersoul and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Shri Krishna as the Supreme Person. Certainly, the transcendental body of Shri Krishna is not perishable. He is just like the sun, and Maya is like a cloud. In the material world, we can see that there is the sun and that there are clouds and different stars and planets. The clouds may cover all these in the sky temporarily, but this covering is only apparent to our limit. But this covering is only apparent to our limited vision. The sun, moon, and stars are not actually covered. Similarly, Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord. By his internal potency, he is not manifest to the less intelligent class of men. As it is stated in the 3rd verse of this chapter, out of millions and millions of men, some try to become perfect in this human form of life, and out of thousands and thousands of such perfected men, hardly one can understand what Lord Krishna is. Even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, without being Krishna consciousness. Om Agnyantmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapatantakam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahrana Raghunatham Gatam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganam Lalita Shri Vishakam Tamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishnupanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नामिने नमो नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you once again, Prabhus, Matajis, for getting together on the Zoom forum. So today's class, first of all, before I begin, I'd like to offer my obeisances and gratitude to the brahmachari from Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir in Chopati, Mumbai, His Grace Gauranga Priya Prabhu. He has compiled a very nice handbook on Bhagavad Gita, where every chapter and every verse is very well explained, and it's very relevant to what we are doing, the systematic study. So it's a systematic study of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's a good reference point. I'll strongly encourage everyone. If you don't already have it, you could go do a Google search, Gauranga Priya Prabhu, and download his copy. It's called Bhagavad Gita Notes. So thank you to Gauranga Priya Prabhuji. So let's quickly cover chapter 7 and specifically section 6. Okay, so chapter 7, we know 30 shlokas. We had done this last time. So it is section 1 is you should hear to know Krishna. Hearing is a type of seeing, right? They say seeing is believing, right? So similarly, hearing to know Krishna. How can we know Krishna? By hearing about him from bona fide sources, from bona fide people. Then the section 2 talks about when we know this, when we hear about Krishna, we come to know about his different types of energy. Krishna has unlimited energies. It is unlimited, his potencies. There is no, you cannot say that he has 5, 10, 100, 100,000. No, he has infinite energy that count, and it is ever increasing. So, however, these energies are classified into two main areas. You can see spiritual and material. The most of the energy is material, the majority, you can say, and then a little bit portion is the the most of it is spiritual, the other way around, pardon me, and a little bit portion is the material energy. These are two classifications for our understanding. And then you have in section 3, Krishna controls the mode. We know that there are these 3 modes, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. And all of us, whatever we do, whatever we think, say, act, everything is, controlled by these modes, or everything. And it is a mixture of these modes. It could be goodness, it could be goodness, passion, passion, ignorance, it could be passion, ignorance, and good, whatever. Everything is all encompassing, whatever the jiva is doing in the material world. Then section 4 talks about who the pious is and who the impious is. So one distinguishing character of the impious is that he or she will never surrender. Never surrender. Now we may think about people are And impious could be altruistic. Usually, when we say someone impious, we think sinful, and sinful, we think of all heinous sinful activities like murder and you're being violent and so forth. But you could be having really very polished, very cultured, very educated, very soft spoken, very mannerful people who are still impious. So impious is a function of your consciousness, and they could be doing a lot of charity. They could be doing a lot of so-called good in the sattva guna mode, but they will never surrender. So such is one of the quality of the impious person. And then section 5 talks about, it goes further into when it talks about surrender. Then okay, then there are people who surrender to the demigods. We understand who the demigods are. Demigod is an appointed post. It's a jiva who occupies a particular post for a certain period of time for a certain function. Correct? Krishna empowers that person to do a certain function in the working of this material existing. And then the impersonalists, the persons who are convinced that the creator, God, Krishna, doesn't have a form, right? He's impersonal. They could have different understanding. It could either be, they'll say that he's void, there's nothing, like the Buddhist philosophy, or they'll say that no, it's just this entire Brahman, the effulgence. Some people refer to as, oh, God is light, God is energy, God is power, God is love. All these kind of uh, understandings. Okay, it's a, yes, God is all those things, but it's a very, very limited understanding. It's not the complete understanding of who Krishna is. Of course, understand that knowing Krishna is impossible because simply because Krishna, all his qualities, all his potencies is always increasing. He's infinite. He's Vibhu, whereas we are infinitesimal. There is only that much that we can know. But still, even in whatever little bit that we know, there are gradations of knowledge. So one is we are completely ignorant, then there is a little bit knowledge. You come to his Brahman effulgence, that's his realization. Then you can come to know Krishna as the localized aspect as Paramatma. And then there is higher than that is the Bhagwan realization, and that Bhagwan realization is the topmost realization. And then finally, chapter 7 concludes with section 6. And in section 6, it talks about how the jiva, the bewilderment, and the freedom, how there is both this bewilderment in knowing Krishna and getting freedom in knowing Krishna. Now you may say, how is it that by knowing Krishna I can still be bewildered? And how can I get freedom knowing Krishna? Simply put, bewilderment is if we go with our own attempt, if we go with our own power, my own intellect, my own capability, I'll find out who Krishna is, then we'll get completely bewildered. Because on one end, Krishna seems like this, and then somewhere else you'll come across and, oh, Krishna is completely opposite of what we had earlier understood and realized it. And it will be impossible then to reconcile and bring these two together. That is bewilderment. But freedom happens that when you take the shelter of the Guru Parampara. Guru Parampara is basically Krishna himself revealing through this medium. So Krishna reveals himself through the Guru Parampara. And once when we submit to the Guru Parampara, the descending form of knowledge, that descending form of knowledge, we understand who Krishna is, and when we understand who Krishna is, we understand who we are. That is freedom, and we'll understand freedom from what. Okay, so this is what the chapter 7 and specifically chapter 6, what we're going to cover in detail today. So as we know, there are two levels. There is understanding, and then there is application. When we apply whatever we understand, that we know, that becomes realization. Understanding, knowledge can be forgotten. Realizations cannot be forgotten or cannot be as easily forgotten. So for example, as a child, we learned how to ride a bicycle. We understood the balance and how to pedal, how to steer the handle, and so on and so forth. And even if you sit on a bicycle after 40, 50 years, you have not ridden it at all, you still would be able to ride the bicycle. Now, the same way, the knowledge that we had got in school, for example, history. In history, you have to remember all those dates. Battle of Panipat. I'm pretty certain most of us have forgotten in what year the Battle of Panipat was fought. I have forgotten, and there are so many things I've forgotten. I think it was 1857. I don't know. Someone can Google and look it up. It's forgotten. Why was it forgotten? Because other information came and started cluttering in my head. And that information is what was more in the forefront. And then I was using that information in my day-to-day life to do something else. That Battle of Panipat I never used ever in any practical manner. So we tend to forget, which is just knowledge, but what is applied goes deep within and it remains, right? So understanding and application. So in section 6, what we can get an understanding is that we are all entrapped in this material world. We will see how, because of our envy and hatred towards Krishna, it brings about this entrapment, that envy and hatred wanted us to usurp his position. We said, why should Krishna be the enjoyer? I want to be the enjoyer. And all these selfish desires that started coming up, dvesh, a desire separate from Krishna, that is what traps us in this material world, Maya. Now, once we understand it, that we're trapped over here, how do we get free from it? You get free with 3 processes. One is knowledge, understanding, correct? Second is devotion. Third is surrender. Devotion is what they call bhakti. And final is that surrender. So we will cover this in more details. Now let us understand if Krishna's form is personal or impersonal. Is he same as or different from Jiva or the Veda, Abheda Tattva? Right? So we know, first of all, let us understand what is time. Time is cyclical. People think that time is in one direction only. Time is moving in one direction. Actually, time is cyclical. It goes around. Now, physics says that wherever there is space, there is time. So time and space cannot be separated. So if there is space, there is time. If there is time, there is space. These two things are, it's like a fabric. Look at a cloth, correct? In the fabric, you have the, it is woven with time and space. So that's what the existence is, what modern science physics says. It's the fabric of creation, time and space, correct? But that's what we talk about as the material creation. And that same concept of the material creation, when we say time is cyclical, in our scriptures, it says that the material world comes into existence, remains for a while, and is again goes out of existence. So it comes on, it goes off. It comes on, it goes off. It comes on how? It comes through Mahavishnu, right? He exhales and everything comes into being. He inhales and everything is withdrawn. Exhale, inhale. And these are fantastic time scales. Like, it's phenomenal, those time scales. That's what is happening. So when space itself all gets pulled into Mahavishnu, there is no such space, there is nothing. So there is no time. So what is happening, if you see this on and off, you can visualize it as like this is one cycle. This is the second cycle, the third cycle. And this goes on and on and on and on. However, in the spiritual creation or the spiritual existence, it is always on. It is never going off. As such, it is a concept that we need to understand in our mind, that the spiritual world has space. It's space. It is about, if we just give rough, rule of thumb kind of a calculation, the material is 25%, spiritual is 75%. Now, in that 75% space of all that there is, in that 75% space, there is no time. Time doesn't have its effect. Time has its effect only in the material world. So when it has this effect in the material world, There is this past, there is the present, there is the future. And we all of us know past, present, future. All of us would know. Yes, of course, you immediately know your past, what you did when you got up. You went to the restroom, washed yourself, freshened up, brushed your teeth, had a shower, started your day. It happened in the past, it just happened today. You will also know what happened uh, a few weeks ago, a few years ago, a few decades ago. You will know this. Now there is the future. Now for future, tomorrow, I'm planning that, oh, I have this meeting in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. I'll be preparing for that meeting today afternoon, for my meeting tomorrow. That's what I know of. Whether it will happen or no, I don't know. There could be rains, there could be an earthquake. Maybe the person calls in to cancel the meeting. He has some family emergency. Future, uncertain, nobody knows. We plan for it, but nobody knows for sure. The present that I am living in right now, whatever I'm doing, I'm speaking right now, you are hearing right now. That is happening in the present moment. Actually, in the material condition, when we talk about present moment, and there's this big new age kind of philosophy, live in the moment, live in the moment. What they mean by live in the moment is basically most of us either we brood about the past, having regrets. Array, I could have done this differently. Array, I should have, could have, would have, all that stuff, correct? Or we are procrastinating about the future. What will happen over there? What will, if I'm doing whatever I'm doing over here now, will it actually pay off in the future? Whatever. That's what we spend our time. But we don't understand that typically today, right now, today is the tomorrow that we were worrying about yesterday. So that's why they say live in the present moment, live in the present moment. But if the people who look only at the material sciences, if you look at the material science, physics says that none of us live in the present, all of us are living in the past. Now we may say, how so? How are we living in the past? Because our understanding of the past is a time scale. When so much time goes by, we live in the past. And time which is perceptible. There are times which are happening at the microsecond. So that time which we're looking at.
चल 10 मिनट है बंद करो चल.
So the time that we're looking at is something which we can experience and it's perceptible. If this time scale, then actually, so for example, when I'm saying something, that audio is coming and hitting your ears, and by the time that sound vibration gets converted to electrical impulses and it goes in your brain, and your brain can process it and you understand, there's a fraction of a second. So by the time you heard it and by the time you understood that sound, time had elapsed. So your realization and your experience of that sound happens after it has already occurred. Similarly, when we see, sight is the fastest, light is the fastest known phenomenon. So that light that we are seeing happens in a billionth of a second. So whatever we are seeing hasn't happened now, so to say, but it happened a billionth of a second earlier. So all of us are living in the past, so to say. Now that's another characteristic of the material living. We all live in the past, so to say. However, in a spiritual situation, you are actually absorbed in that moment. There's no time lag, there's no delay. And being absorbed in that moment, you could literally be in that moment forever. And we have some experiences of it here in the material world. In the material world, when if there is something that we enjoy doing, time passes very quickly. You look at the weekend goes very quickly. But the weekdays, we think that, oh God, it takes so much time, especially Mondays. It's only 8 hours you're working, but that 8 hours seems to be like 10, 12, 15 hours. It just doesn't seem to move. Our perception of time. But in the spiritual moment, when you're absorbed in whatever it is that you're doing, it is full absorbment. You're not thinking past, you're not thinking present, you are actually in the moment. So time we have is past, present, future. So we understand time and how it is in the spiritual world, how it is in the material world. Okay, so you understand time. It is one of the five main themes that Bhagavad Gita discusses. What does Bhagavad Gita talk about? It talks about the controller, Krishna. It talks about the controlled, the Jiva Tattva. It talks about Kala, time. It talks about creation, Prakriti, and it talks about karma, actions. These are the five main themes of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, of this, four are eternal. Only the fifth aspect, which is karma, is not eternal, meaning to say that we can wipe out karma completely. So, time we can also understand as one of the five truths in the Bhagavad Gita, and its effect is felt on matter alone. Anything that is material comes under the jurisdiction of time, this past, present, future. That is what time is. You can also understand time is one of the energies, one of the potencies of Krishna. He manifests as time, the destroyer of the material world. So in Bhagavad Gita, he has shown Krishna his Virat Roop, and everything is like blazing mouth and everything is just rushing headlong into it. Krishna says, I've already destroyed everyone over here, with the exception of you Pandavas. Time destroys everything. This is self-evident. We all can see, look at our body, how it's getting destroyed. Look at whatever things that we have. Over a period of time, eventually, it gets deteriorated. And since it is his energy, Krishna is in control of time. We are under the control of time because we are in a material condition. We have a material body. However, Krishna controls time. When Krishna performs his Leela and he comes in the material world, 5,000 years ago he had come here. Krishna is not subjected to time. Chronologically, he was 100 plus years. But if you look at him, he looks like a young man, like a young teenager. If you see a 100-year-old man, normally he'll have all wrinkles, he'll be bent over, coughing, lot of illnesses. How is that? Because Krishna is fully spiritual. Time is one of his energies and he controls time. Now, when we have this past, present, future, naturally, because we are subjected to the past, present, future, we have some kind of memories, whatever happened in the past. That's a function of the mind to remember, right? Now, this mind will see how far back can we remember? How clearly can we remember that instance? So if I ask you as an exercise, try this exercise out, all of you, close your eyes and go as far back as you can, as far back. What is your earliest memory? The first memory that you can think of. How old were you? Like my memory, I must have been about 1.5, 2 years old. And where we grew up in Mumbai, I was a small little child. There were these Pathans, our neighbors. So these Pathans used to babysit me, so to say. And in the evening, they would take me downstairs. And I still have that vivid recollection of opposite, there was a coffee shop. And that was, they used to roast the coffee beans. So I remember that fragrance of the coffee beans being roasted. Very vivid. I remember that they call them lalas. I remember that lala, big beard he had. I remember the odor, his body odor. And every day he used to give me an apple. I was too small to bite into the apple, but I used to just be holding an apple in my hand. And we used to watch the traffic and cars and, whatever people. This is my earliest recollection, and I remember it very vividly. Now, you also think about it. It could be maybe some of you could remember even earlier, or maybe when you were 5 years or whatever, but think about it. Now, if you ask yourself this question, who is remembering? Who is remembering this? Now, that little child, 2-year-old child holding an apple, is completely different. It doesn't look anything like what I do now. But still, that sense of I, that sense of being me, has remained the same. Who remembers? It is the spirit soul, me and the jiva, is remembering through the faculty of the mind. So we have all these recollections, and these recollections, come from the mind. It is the spirit soul, but it is on top of that, there is that mind through the medium of the mind. Now we can understand the mind, okay? The present and the past is what we can. So we have short-term and long-term memories. However, a mind, because it is matter, is limited, it is faulty, and it is under illusion. However, for future, totally unknown, we don't know. We can make best guesses. We can use all kinds of mathematics. We can use all kinds of probabilities, but we don't know for sure. And whatever is not known, we have fear of the unknown. It is inbuilt in all of us. Fear of the unknown. That gives the anxiety. However, Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, in my early days of Hare Krishna, when he started explaining, he used to come and he used to explain all this. I got kind of nervous. So I said, my God, what am I doing with my life? And, I'm really scared. So he laughed and he says, it's good, you're scared. And I was very confused. I said, I'm scared and you're saying it's good? He says, yes, fear is the beginning of knowledge. So when we are scared, when we have fear, if it gives us the impetus to find out about that thing and to correct it, that is positive. But that same emotion that we feel, if we do nothing about it, if we allow it to overwhelm us, it becomes negative. So Krishna, we've understood this, how the time and how it plays up on the mind. So Krishna, his topmost realization, as we said, is Bhagwan realization. What is the proof? Ishwar Parama. Why are we saying you need proof to do this? It is self-evident, but it is proof is because our mind is not at all accustomed to these spiritual topics. We are totally conditioned to accept only what is material. So just as in the material sciences, when we were kids, we learned that metal expands when heated. So you went into a physics lab and the teacher took a metal ball and they heated it and they tried to put it through that ring, it didn't go, and you realize, it has expanded. So there was proof. So similarly over here, the teachers, the Guru Parampara, the Shastras, the books, they tell us, who is Krishna? Ishwar Parama Krishna, Satchitananda Vigra. He has a spiritual form. He is unlimited and he's ever expanding. And we are part and parcels of his spiritual potency. What is the proof? Ishopanishad. He's unlimited. The prayer, Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam. Complete wholes come out of him, full universes, full cosmic manifestations, innumerable, come out of him, but that doesn't diminish. He remains the complete whole. And now we have the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. We are one with Krishna, yet we are different. How? The example is given as the ocean water. The ocean water has the same qualitative attributes like the ocean itself. If you take the pH level, the acidity, whatever else there is, will be identical to the ocean. But a drop is a drop and the ocean is immense. How do we know this? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna, Jivas, and Mayas, who controls whom. Okay, what is Maya? Let's understand. It's an energy of Krishna. It's basically an illusion, and that illusion is caused by a muddied consciousness. We have a polluted consciousness. It's like a mirage. In a desert, we see mirage. Mirage is basically tricks that the light plays. So in the distance in a mirage in the desert, we'll think it looks like water, but actually it is not. However, mirages are real, they do occur. Water is also real, but the presence of water at that specific location is not real. So all of us in this material world is like a mirage. It gives the appearance. So what we are having over here, what we are experiencing is not real. We experience joy, we experience pain, we experience sorrow, is not real. However, happiness is something, it is there. So that's why they say this is an illusion. Um, uh, it is a reflection. It's a perverted reflection of what is actually real. So what is real is happening in the spiritual world, and that exact same thing here is getting in a perverted sense is what it appears. So water is real, but in a mirage, it's just the appearance of water. So why Maya? So this is Maya, then what's the purpose of Maya? It's actually Maya is what we ourselves put ourselves into, and we ourselves can pull ourselves out, and we ourselves is for us. Okay, we have been envious of Krishna. We want to be Krishna. Now, in reality, it is not possible. It is possible only in a dream. Dhanurdhar Maharaj had said, we've turned our back from Krishna, but how can you turn a back from an entity who's everywhere? He's within the atom, he's outside the atom. There's no space. There's nowhere where Krishna isn't there. He's within us, he's outside us. So how can you turn your back from Krishna? It is impossible. It's only in an illusion. It's only in a dream that we can think we've turned our back from Krishna. So if we can consider Maya, you can consider it to be like a laboratory. And what we jivas are doing here in this material world is we are experimenting at being like Krishna. All of us want to be little Ishwaras. All. We experience that futility of it. We want to experience being Krishna. Krishna is the most famous. That's one of his opulence. We also want to be very famous. So on social media, we post, Facebook posting, whatever. In this group, WhatsApp group, we post. And then we want to see how many people have liked, how many people have given thumbs up, how many people have given comments. So we want to be famous, we want to be recognized. Like this, there are many experiments we are doing at being Ishvara. And when we go through these repeated failed experience over and over again, we get to that futility. We understand that, what am I doing? And when that happens, then we say, no, I should be trying something different, reform our behavior. Now, whatever we are doing, this drama at trying to be Krishna, okay, gets karma. And karma traps us. Karma is nothing but actions have consequences. Karma traps us further into Maya. And karma is not just for this lifetime. Karma continues. So this lifetime, we finish whatever role that we're playing. Whatever we've done, we'll get a new role after death. The principle of reincarnation, that new role, will again be doing that karma. Okay. It is impossible for the jiva to overcome Maya because Maya is immense. She is extremely powerful. We are powerless. And secondly, is we ourselves don't want to get out of this. We want to be Krishna. We want to keep trying. No, this didn't work. Now I'm going to try something else. We all want to be Ishwaras. So two things. One is we ourselves don't want to get out of this place. And the second is she is extremely powerful, Maya. We are powerless. So it's just that we're stuck here. It's like a lifetime sentences, not this time only, like all our lifetime. So then what do? Then you have questions. It comes. When this futility happens, now we start asking, who am I? What's my purpose? Where am I going? Of course, that comes internally. However, you also need mercy, which we may not even know how we are getting it. We did some unconscious act of devotional service. Krishna is so merciful. Even if we just did it, perform it unknowingly, he recognizes it and values it. Some devotee we came in contact with, the journey begins of leaving, getting out of the trapment of Maya. When you have these perfect questions, it will lead us to perfect answers. So Krishna consciousness is a medium in which these questions can be answered perfectly. Then it talks about knowledge, spiritual knowledge. When we have spiritual knowledge, it induces us to engage in acts of devotion. And when we engage in acts of devotion, our surrender of all these misconceptions and all these anarthas. Yes, I'm not Ishvara. I'm the controlled, I'm not the controller. That happens. And when that happens, love develops. Love for Krishna, from envy, it gets transformed to love. That is what puts us back to Godhead. Back to Godhead is a physical place. It's an actual place, the spiritual world, which is outside. But back to Godhead is also internal, our consciousness. That's why it's called Krishna. Prabhupada has called it Krishna consciousness. So spirituality is both a place as well as internal consciousness. So we could be still in the material world and fully spiritual conscious. And those effects of time will happen on our body. However, our consciousness remains undisturbed, fully spiritual. That's how we get beyond Maya, beyond duality, and beyond time. So conclusion, this is what the root cause of the problem is, selfish desires. And how you get out of it? Surrender to Krishna in full knowledge. Our original sin is this desire we want to be Krishna. We are jealous of him. Okay? And we know this particular shloka, it shows that Krishna's form is spiritual. It's spiritual because he is fully cognizant of past, present, and future. He knows everyone, but no one knows who Krishna is. Okay? People say that, oh, Maya, the Mayavadis, can cover Krishna. No, it is not so. What's the proof? He knows the past, present, and the future. A cloud may temporarily cover the sun, but it's a vision which is being clouded. It cannot cover the sun or any other heavenly body. When I was talking about being spiritual in a material condition when Prabhupada came, you all are familiar with 26 Second Avenue if you have visited that. That's where Prabhupada started the movement from. And it was a ghetto. Whatever it was quite a deprecate, and there were the hippies and people indulging in all kinds of material activities. But Prabhupada in that place started a spiritual movement. So you can look at it like how a lotus grows in quite shabby, dirty areas, the pond, kitchad. But it rises, the roots go in there, but it rises above, untouched, clean. And lotus is described to say anything which is very sublime, very beautiful. So here in 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada started a spiritual movement. It wasn't, Prabhupada was sitting in Vrindavan, the holiest of the holiest places, the most spiritual place. But he came here into a most material place and started ISKCON. And because of that, today you and I are on a path back to Godhead. We are making an attempt, all of us. Some are going really fast, some are a little slow. Doesn't matter. Important thing is to remain on the path. We may stumble, we may fall, some may run, some are walking, some are limping. Doesn't matter. Stay on the path. So, Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, I really like this quote of his. It's not a question of faith, but it is a science of self-realization. Thank you, Prabhus, Matajis. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If anyone has questions, comments, you could do it now or in the Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have one question, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Can you speak up a little bit? Your voice is cracking and it's quite soft.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. That was very wonderful, Prabhuji. God bless you, Srila Prabhuji.
Jai
Prabhuji,
Prabhupada.
yeah, Prabhuji, one quick question. Now, Lord Krishna can know the past, present, and future very accurately. But when we talk about demigods, how close they are, Prabhuji, in knowing this past, present, and future? Because, Lord Brahma,
Yeah.
has basically knows all the future. Are
Yeah.
Brahma mein kya aapka likha hai takdir mein? We don't know, right? They say
Yeah.
always this way.
Yeah.
So Lord Brahma also knows about the past, present, and future, or he knows only about the future? He doesn't know about the past.
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Bimal Prabhu. Prabhupada has said questions is a symptom of intelligence. And you're using your intelligence in the right way to know something about spirituality. So on your question is, firstly, we have to understand that Krishna knows everything about everything in totality, not bits and pieces, completely, past, present, future. That is the first point to keep in mind. Now, there are jivas. All of us are jivas. Brahma is also jiva. All of us jivas have different level of capacities and capabilities. And we can see it amongst ourselves also. There are some people whose IQs are genius level, and some people who are not all that level, and they could even be at a very low level of that. So it's just a capability or the capacity. Now, there are certain people through certain practices in years gone by, there used to be some people called Shruti Dharis, and they are jivas like you and me. Through practice, they were able to listen to something just once, listen to it only once, and recite it completely. And they used to have these competitions. They used to just rattle off random numbers. And these people could then hear it once and recollect. So there are these people with immense capacities, number one. Number two, through training. Now, similarly, through certain siddhis, yogi siddhis, they are able to get these kind of, they can go through the transcend the physical limitations which traps all of us. So we have a certain physical limitation of time and place. We have certain limit. Well, take time, for example. I'm over here. But there are people who would be able to, these yogis with certain siddhis, they would even be able to travel. They could become smaller than the smallest. They could become heaviest. They could do many things. They could read people's minds and all that. So we have to understand this. They are still mental or they are still material capacities and capabilities through training. Okay, it could also be through Krishna's empowerment. Now, Krishna has empowered certain jivas like demigods to do certain activities. So they also get certain perks, you can call it, to do these things. So, yes, it is possible for certain jivas. I had this question yesterday when I was preparing this class. I was asking Madhupati Prabhu, I had a doubt, so I asked him. And Prabhupada in his purport has written that jivas cannot remember their past life. Now, we also understand there's a reason why you don't remember your past life. It is an act of mercy from Krishna. Because at the time of death and birth are extremely painful event. For the mother, they say it is labor pain. It's labor pain, not labor joy. Of course, it's a act of love, which is joy, but all the same, physically, it is very painful. Similarly, for the child to come up being squeezed from a narrow canal, it's very traumatic. Similarly, when we are dying, because we are so attached to this body, it is described like 30, 40 scorpions biting you simultaneously. The jiva is completely bewildered. But still, there is reincarnation, and there are people who remember their past life. They'll say, "Oh, I was this little child in this village." Nothing to do with that village. They are somewhere else, could be in a foreign country. So, how is it possible? How is a jiva remembering his or her past life? So, this is the question I asked Madhupati Prabhu. And Madhupati Prabhu gave a nice answer. He says, what happens at the time of death is that we have, they say your life flashes by you. First point to note is, as I told you, Krishna knows everything in entirety. Such jivas who remember past life know only a certain fraction or a jhalak of their past life. That is number one. They don't remember all their lives. Krishna remembers all our lives, who we were, from the spiritual world, what we were, and then since the time we came down over here, and then what we are going ahead. He knows that. Whereas these who have these reincarnation, we have these past life experiences, they regress and they can recollect that. He says that when we die, we have all these, our life flashes by like a movie, just flashes by. And there are certain memory that get ingrained in the mind very deeply, extremely deeply, it gets into the mind over there. Now, at the time of the death, the spirit soul travels on the vehicle of the mind, intelligence, and the false ego. So this is also matter, the subtle body. So the soul sits on the subtle body and it travels and then it gets its next body, whatever it be. Now, when it gets into that next body, since this impression is seared into the mind at the time of the death, he can somewhat remember partial of that. And after a while, they forget it. So your question is that, can demigods? Yes, demigods can know the past, the present, and the future, but we have to understand not in its entirety. It's only for a certain span. Now that is based on whatever empowerment Krishna has given them to do a specific function. Similarly, the jivas who are inferior in capacity and capabilities to the demigod, a jiva also, today it is not possible because the material conditioning is so much. The discipline is haywire, that to get that level of discipline and those practices, it is almost next to impossible. But there are always exceptions to rule. You may have one or two. Yet that doesn't compare to Krishna in any way, shape, or form. Thank you, Prabhu. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Danat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Pranam Mataji. Jai Prabhupada. Yeah, Mata.
I have this question regarding the self-realization. So we have to also keep ourselves away from the center, as we keep hearing that we have to come out of the I, me, myself ideology and put Krishna in the center. But the whole purpose of our human life is to realize the self. So it is again keeping self in the center, that we are supposed to realize our own selves. How does those two meet? At
Yes.
what point we have to know that, okay, do we get to know ourselves better, or we have to just understand how Krishna
Yes.
wants to know him better?
Yes. Very good question. Because it says put Krishna in the center, and at the same time it says self-realization. Bhakti Charu Maharaja said self-realization, right? And we need
Right.
to realize who our self is. So these two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are both connected and related. Keeping Krishna in the center and self-realization. When we say self-realization, is understanding who the real self is. Who am I? And when I know who I am a spirit soul. Okay, then what is the spirit soul? Spirit soul is part and parcel of Krishna. And because it is part and parcel of Krishna, a part is meant to serve the whole. Krishna is whole, I am the part. So that is the self. That is the real self. Yesterday, Simesh, or yesterday or day before yesterday, Prabhu was giving a Bhagavad class. And he raised this point and he said, Jivera Mahap in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jivera Swarupa Hoye, Krishnera Nitya Das. That is self-realization. That self, the real self, in its total reality, no concoction, no misunderstanding. That self, when we know who we are. The other self that we are accustomed to is a self which is the false ego driven self. Ego is a sense of I am, that I-ness, that identity, I am. So I think I am an Indian. I think I am a Vaishnav. I think I have this body. I think Savita is my wife. I'm the husband. She is my wife, my children, my job, my this, my that. I'm educated. I'm rich. I'm poor, whatever it is. That is a misidentity. That is a mistaken identity. So that self we have to get rid of and come to the real self. Who am I? The real me. So when I know the real me, and knowing the real me, I get to know Krishna. And in getting to know Krishna, I get to know the real me. So that thing what we spoke about, knowledge, devotion, surrender. So that's where it starts with, of that 3 steps, right? Yeah, this one. Knowledge. This knowledge. Getting the real knowledge. We all have knowledge. Of course, everyone has knowledge. But that knowledge is 99.9999% is related to material. And we know what are the limitations of material. So that I, when we talk about I, is I am the servant of Krishna and I'm meant to serve Krishna. How do I serve Krishna as I don't serve Krishna directly? I'm dasa, 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 anudas. That's how Mahaprabhu has taught. That's the way you go about doing it. So that I is reality. The other I is an intuition. So that way, Mataji, like you see yourself in the mirror. That's just a reflection of who you are. That's not really who you are in the mirror. And if that mirror is clouded, if that mirror is cracked, you'll see yourself in, when we were little kids, we used to go to these fairs. And in these fairs, they had these mirrors, which are all funny shapes. And if you go and see your reflection, we used to laugh because you could be fat, you could be long, and all these kind of funny things used to happen. And it used to have a big laugh. It used to be really very funny. We are seeing ourselves, but that's not really who we are. But that's exactly how our material world is. We consider ourselves to be those funny pictures. And we think, yeah, this is me. So self-realization is understanding who that real self is. For which we need the Guru Parampara, we need the Sangha, and so on and so forth. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu, very intriguing and at the same time, a very tough question to answer.
Please keep asking questions, Mataji. It helps not only you, it helps the speaker, it helps all those who are listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
thank you
Jai.
so much. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Simeshwar Prabhu, for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nice class. Nicely explained. The science
All
of
glories to Prabhupada.
self-realization in a nutshell. So nice. Very good. So thank you so much, Proji.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear devotees, as well. So this is not one way. This is two way. Everybody gets benefits. Those who are speaking, those who are hearing, those who are asking questions. Even computer gets benefits. It's also spiritual. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much. So on this Thursday, there will not be any class, and Thursday at the temple we are going to have Chandramauli Maharaj is coming to our temple, so we'll have evening class with Maharaj, and those who are not able to come to temple, we will also same Zoom link will be also using to broadcast as well. So devotees can join on the Zoom as well from far distance, but those who are nearby, please join the temple. So that otherwise it won't be empty, right, when Maharaj comes. So
Prabhu, the same one. Prabhu,
Same
the
one.
same link.
Yep, same Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. So please join. Then Friday is Vijayadashami. We are celebrating. We'll celebrate that on Sunday. We continue our classes on the Zoom on Friday evening as well. So don't confuse. So we'll have classes on Friday, but we will not have class on Thursday, like a Bhagavad Gita class. But let's also have Zoom on the 7 o'clock. Maybe 7 o'clock, maybe a little later, maybe 7:30, like that. So be tuned. Also, we have our Sankirtan meeting today, 8 o'clock. I mean, it's fine. So we would also request devotees to stay back. So we'll discuss the Sankirtan program, upcoming festivals, and other Sankirtan opportunities. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Murdananda Proji, for a wonderful class, and
Thank you.
class from the, very nicely from the Pune. So nice. Okay, so
Hare
let's
Krishna, all glories to Prabhupada.
all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Let's pay our obeisance to all the assembled Vaishnava. Vancha kalpatarupasya kripa sindhu bhyevacha patidanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnava ki jai.
Jai.
Kandara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Krishna Vrunda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So let's get to our